Bueno, que lo que mi gente, welcome to my universe, welcome back to my universe, welcome to another episode of the Things I Never Said podcast. This is Starlini speaking, pero ya tu sabe. This one is a little bit different because I actually don't have a quote that I wanted to reference. This one is just coming from mi corazón, from my heart, because I feel very strongly about this here sentiment that I'm going to share today. And this is something that I had to apply to myself. This is something that I learned a really long time ago when I was still a teenager. And I just wanted to share it. I want to share it for the people who I've received emails from and for anyone else who needs to hear this or who will come across this message whenever they do. I believe the title is something along the lines of focus on approving of yourself rather than disappointing others. In other words, focus on not being a disappointment to yourself instead of focusing more on disappointing somebody else. And I say that because you're not here for those other people. Your existence is not centered around whether somebody else validates your presence here on this earth. You're not invited into rooms and invited into certain spaces as you navigate throughout this life because somebody thinks that you are deserving. No, first and foremost, especially if you are a spiritual person, you may understand that we are here because of the divine entity, the creator, whom some may call God, that decided that we deserve to be here or we were supposed to be here. And first and foremost, you are supposed to honor yourself. You are supposed to strive to do better for yourself. When people get in the way of that, you remove yourself from those people. You don't chastise them. You don't put them down. You remove yourself from those people because those are the kinds of people who will put what they value on your plate instead of putting it on theirs. They will put their responsibilities on your shoulders instead of putting it on theirs, all because they recognize that you care less about yourself and your own well-being and you care more about that of others. You're not going to get very far in your life, in terms of your growth and your personal evolution, if you are constantly or consistently putting other people on a pedestal in your life. And when I say other people, I mean their baggage, I mean their issues, I mean their responsibilities, I mean the situations that you know you can't even help them out of because they're in those situations due to their own actions or because of lessons they need to learn. You can't save everybody, and it's not your responsibility to do that. And it's really disappointing to me that so many people that I've come across, both younger than me, my same age, or older than me, have struggled with this concept of not wanting to disappoint people around them, not realizing that in a heartbeat, that person can drop dead, or that person can decide they don't want anything to do with you anymore. And you will have spent all of this time in your life focusing on what that person wanted you to be or what that person wanted you to do. And for what? For you to start living for yourself when you're about 53 years old? Because that's a damn shame. You don't have very much time left. By the time you reach your 50s or even your 40s, you may have already lived more than half of your lifespan. There's no point in prioritizing what other people would have you do, especially when you recognize that those people are not living that way when it comes to you. You're walking around focusing on what other people would have you do, right? But are they telling themselves, oh, I'm not going to do this because, oh, that person wouldn't want me to do it? No, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to do it because they feel like it. And if you ask them, why did you do that? They're going to say it's because I wanted to. Meanwhile, you're denying yourself of opportunities. You're denying yourself of certain relationships and certain circumstances that you could be in just because you think in your mind that the other person in your life doesn't want you to do those things. Who cares? Why do you care so much? At one point in your life, do you start to live for yourself? At what point in your life do you start to decide that I'm going to do this for me because I want it and I believe that I should have it? I believe that I deserve it. It's not that it's an easy process, but the first time you overcome that noise in your head that says, don't be a disappointment to that person, it becomes easier to live for yourself. Just a little personal anecdote because it may help people relate and put things into perspective. I'll say this. I was brought up in foster care, as some of you may already know, and then I was taken from my foster home and brought up north to live with my biological parents, who I did not remember, and my biological siblings, who I also did not remember. That is because I was taken away at 5 months young. So I was brought up around the age of 7 to 8 years young, and I lived with them for about 8 years. And in that time period, even though I did not really know any of the people who were my quote unquote family members, I still didn't want to be a disappointment to them. I didn't want them to be embarrassed of me. I understood that even though we didn't have a sense of family, we were still family. And I wanted us all to at least be one cohesive unit instead of what we were, which was simply just like a group of people who lived like strangers under one roof for the majority of the time that I was there. And even though I was constantly told that I was not good enough, I was told that I was ugly by my mother, I was told how I wasn't thick enough, I wasn't pretty enough. My sister told me that, she would always say things like, oh, my hair is the prettiest. Oh, I have the lightest skin. I'm the prettier one. And then after me, it's our younger sister. After her, it's the sister none of us have even met. And then after her, it's me. And then after me, it's our dark skinned sister. I would hear stuff like that and be compared to often when it came to my sisters. And I was, just to put things succinctly, I was very well aware that they did not like me. I was very well aware that they were embarrassed of me or that they disapproved of me. Yet, for some reason, my child brain still hoped that they would accept me and hoped that one day they would treat me better. When you find yourself in situations like the one that I was in for those 7 going on 8 years, it is important that you put your hands on your shoulders and you shake yourself and realize that you are never going to satisfy people who don't want to be satisfied with you, your behavior, your actions, your tone, your perspective, and so on and so forth. And it's not your job to seek validation from those people. If they don't like you, if they don't want to like you, if they don't understand you, if they don't want to understand you, oh well, that's okay. It's not your job to worry about that or try to change that. You're wasting your time. And I realized at the age of 14, when I started applying for jobs, and at the age of 15, when I actually started working, and at the age of 16, when I became an emancipated minor, that I needed to invest all that energy into myself, not into these people who were supposed to be my family but couldn't treat me as such. Not into people who called themselves friends of mine but couldn't treat me as such. I was wasting my time. Once you come to that realization, you only have one step next to do, and that is separate yourself from that energy. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon folks. It doesn't mean that you have to completely isolate yourself from people if you don't want to. But for me, I'm not going to waste my time and waste my energy on people who do not deserve the blessing that is my presence. No. There's somebody else out there who deserves it more than you. I'm not going to waste my time striving for somebody to see a value in me. I am valuable. As long as I know that, then I can show up in spaces and have my head held very high. I don't care if I don't know anybody there. Because before I even walked through the door and before I even opened my eyes and stood up from my bed this morning and every morning, I've known that I am worthy. I've known that I should be cherished and I should be honored and I should be respected. If you want that from me, you have to give that to me too. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you gave birth to me. I did not ask you to do that, ma'am. So that's not an excuse. People will put all this pressure on you to not be a disappointment to them. But guess what? They do not put that pressure on themselves not to disappoint you. They will continue to mess up, as in make bad decisions that disrupt the peace in your life. But they want you to stick around. They want you to wait for them. They want you to just accept it. And guess what? Most of you actually will. Most of you actually will allow yourselves to be used, allow yourselves to be manipulated, and allow yourself to be tricked into thinking that your life's work is supposed to be spent pleasing that person. And for what? You spend enough time around people, you'll realize that some of them are just never satisfied. Some people are just not easy to please. And it's because most of the time they have issues within themselves and their own lives that need to be corrected or resolved. That doesn't have much to do with you. You can help people by offering them a wise word. You can help people by referring them to some resources and opportunities that maybe you have used or benefited from. But if somebody disapproves of something that you want to do in your life, that is their business. That is not yours. That is for them to focus on, not you. It doesn't matter if that's your mother. It doesn't matter if that's your husband. It doesn't matter. And it could be as simple as you wanting to wear a certain color that somebody thinks is Satan's color, so you can't wear it, or, something goofy like that. I'll give another example. When I was living with my biological parents, I was well aware that piercings were frowned upon because on the islands where they come from, if you have multiple piercings in your ear, that means things. It means like you're homosexual. If you have 2 piercings, if you have 3 piercings, I don't know what that means, okay? But I just know that it's very much so frowned upon. And my eldest sister, did get a second piercing in her ear, and that didn't really go over well. I have several piercings in my ear. I do not care. Of course, I didn't get the second and third piercings until I left. I didn't get my nose piercing until I left. But that's just one example of me knowing long before I even got the piercings that people that I know, people from my own communities, people from my own ethnic background would disapprove of my piercings simply because of what they were taught to perceive the meaning of those piercings as. Oh, well, that is a them problem. That doesn't have nothing to do with me. If I want the piercing, I'm going to get the piercing. If you don't like it, move around, girl. Call a U-Haul truck. Bye. Call a U-Haul truck. Goodbye. And it's that simple for me. I don't have time. I really don't have time, and neither do you. Your life is not about whether people would have you do this or that or X, Y, or C or all of the above. It doesn't matter. That is what their life is for. Don't be afraid to tell somebody, I can't do that, and just move on with your day. It's not that hard. You just have to get used to doing that when it is the right time. Of course, in certain relationships and when it comes to certain things, you do have to compromise, but you don't need to compromise yourself at all. You don't need to compromise your interests at all. You just have to make sure you're not putting yourself around people who want you to dumb yourself down or suppress your interests just to satisfy them. I promise you, they are not doing the same thing. They're off doing whatever they feel like doing while you're sitting around putting all this anxiety on yourself because you don't want to be a disappointment. And guess what? You're going to look at your life and realize all you are doing is disappointing yourself, disappointing your children, disappointing your future. Stop wasting your time. As I said in the beginning, focus on approving of yourself rather than being a disappointment to somebody else. There is a great sense of power that you can derive from being somebody who approves of the way that they live their life. There is something powerful about that. It changes the way that you show up in spaces. It changes the way that you hold your head up versus looking down all the time. Because you like who you are, even if you don't like your circumstances all the time. You like who you're becoming. You like what you're working towards. You like how you show up in spaces. And I don't mean the external version of you. I mean your spirit. I mean who you are on the inside. Your mind, your sense of ability, your sense of worth. All of that becomes greater when you approve of who you are. So strive to approve of who you are, as opposed to striving to not disappoint other people. That's not your prerogative. And I really do hope people learn to apply that to themselves. But that's all I will say for now. On that note, I will say, tata mi amores, take care.